So, good morning everyone. The next topic we will discuss is multimedia. Okay. Multimedia, we are going to consider different things. First, we will try to show how audio or video files can be downloaded. For example, you have some YouTube video, how we can download that one for future purpose, or how we need to broadcast to clients over the internet. For example, I have some video file, how I should be broadcasting that one. Then we talk about the internet that can also be used for live audio video interaction. When I say live audio video interaction, it is something like I am saying something and you have some questions, you will be again coming back to me. It's like whatever the Teams application we are considering, that can be considered as a live audio video interaction. And these audio and video need to be digitized before we actually send over the internet. So the first object is how we will be downloading for future purpose, and if I have to broadcast a particular video, how we need to broadcast that one, and how we can use internet for live audio video interaction. These are the things we need to talk. And before going with any of these things, we have to address the thing like how audio and video will be digitized if we are trying to send on internet. Then the next thing we will be looking is how audio and video files are compressed for transmission through the internet. Because if we consider direct transmission of either audio or video files, we require many megabits or even gigabits of bandwidth available. But we do not have that much bandwidth available, so we will have to compress the data, either audio file or video file, before we actually send it through internet. Then to discuss the phenomena called jitter, basically jitter is considered to be variation with respect to delay, and it is very important when we are considering interactive audio video sessions, and how to handle that one we will be discussing. And basically whatever the protocols TCP, UDP we have discussed so far, they may not be useful when we talk about multimedia applications. Like if you are trying to send audio file or video file over the internet, TCP and UDP will not be suitable because of their own disadvantages. Like TCP, if I consider, it provides only reliable communication, right? So it's like even if I lost some of the audio signal, TCP tries to replay it after some time. But interactive audio video sessions, we do not want such repetitions, like retransmissions are not encouraged. Okay, similarly UDP also has some problems, so we are not going with TCP or UDP, but we are trying to introduce two more protocols called as RTP, which stands for real-time transport protocol, and RTCP, which stands for real-time transport control protocol. Okay, which are used for multimedia applications. Then we have the last topic where we discuss about voice over IP. When we consider internet, how we are going to send voice over that internet by using IP protocol or internet protocol. Okay, here we are going to discuss two protocols which supports voice over IP. So the chapter outline is like this. We will introduce about different types of applications, I can say, different types of methods, how we are utilizing internet to exchange audio and video information. Then we will talk about how to digitize audio and video, because your computers or mobile devices, they cannot understand uh, whatever the electrical signals we have. We are supposed to represent them in bits. Okay, so how are we going to digitize them? Then we talk about audio or video compression. As I said, without compression, the size will be very big. Then streaming stored audio video, like if I have a video which is stored in a particular server, how we will be streaming that one, like how you stream over YouTube. Okay, so here don't confuse streaming with live audio video. Streaming is something like, for example, I will upload this particular lecture video in YouTube, and you will be watching this one later. Okay, that is also considered to be streaming. This is streaming stored audio video. Similarly, we also have another thing, streaming live audio video. Like a cricket match is going on, or news channel is broadcasting something. In such case, you will be streaming live audio video. So how are we going to do these things? Then if I have a real-time interactive audio video, how we are going to handle that one? Okay, these are the things we will see. Then RTP, RTCP, and voice over IP. Basically, we can divide audio or video services into three broad categories. Okay, the categories are as follows, like streaming stored audio video, streaming live audio video, and interactive audio video. As you can see here. Okay, uh, when I consider uh, when I consider streaming stored audio video, as we said, we can consider I have some YouTube video and I want to stream that particular thing. Okay. And when I consider streaming live audio video, as I said, it can be some broadcasted or multicasted information or video or audio which you are trying to listen. Something like a cricket match is going on. Okay, when a cricket match is going on, you will be watching this particular video, but basically you won't have any interaction, right? You won't be asking a player how you are going to bowl next ball, or how you are going to bat the next ball, right? So it will be like only we have a particular source which is trying to multicast or broadcast this particular video. That can be considered as streaming live audio or video. But just consider a teleconference. Okay, teleconference is going on, like your WhatsApp call. Okay, yes, WhatsApp call I can consider. So when I consider this WhatsApp call, you will be talking and your friend will be responding to it. Okay, so it's something like interactive, where all the entities who are communicating will be taking part in this one. Okay. So, like WhatsApp call, you can consider WhatsApp video call. Okay, that is also interactive. Or video conferencing also you can consider in this particular case. So, like that, we can send audio or video over the internet in three different ways, we can say. Three different ways are there how we are going to do this one. So, streaming stored audio or video refers to on-demand request for compressed audio or video files. Like someone has stored a particular file long back and you are requesting that one at present. So, this can be considered as video on demand. Like at present I want to see a particular movie which was released in some 2000. Okay, then you can consider that as streaming stored audio video. Then I have streaming live audio video, which refers to broadcasting of radio and TV programs through the internet. Okay, it's like at present we have flexibility to watch these TV programs later rather than live, but basically I can also consider like these are the things which comes under streaming live audio video. Like for example, every day at 9 o'clock in the night, news will be coming in ETV. Okay, in that case I can consider this as this one. Or for example, right now England versus India cricket match is going on. Okay, you can watch that one in a particular channel of your TV, and that can be considered as streaming live audio video. Then interactive audio video refers to the use of internet for interactive audio video applications. Like how we are utilizing Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams, using which we are trying to have interactive sessions. Like I'll be delivering lectures. If you have any questions, you will be asking to me. Okay, like that we can consider this as interactive audio video. Okay. I hope the concept of this interactive and stored and live audio video things is clear for you. Next part we will be looking is digitizing audio video. Uh, so when I consider digitization of audio video, first thing is why do we want to go with digitization? So it's like basically your signals will be in the form of electrical signals. For example, I am talking over the microphone. Okay, my sound is fed into microphone, and this electronic or electrical signal, which is basically in analog form, uh, will be like a sound wave which will be varying over time, like amplitude will be varying over time. But this audio signal, when I give it directly to the computer, it cannot understand. Okay, so basically computer cannot understand electric signal, right? Whatever the waveform, sound waveform you are trying to give. So it has to be converted into some form which will be understandable by your computer. So basically what do we do? Like we try to convert from analog to digital. How are we going to convert this one? We might be using some Nyquist theorem. Like for example, I can consider the maximum frequency of my audio signal is f, then I'll be sampling it 2 times f, so that samples are generated, and we will be quantizing them to represent in the form of digital audio signal. Okay, whatever the audio signal we had in analog form, that we will be converting into digital. Then we will be sampling voice. For example, voice, if I consider like 4000 hertz is the maximum frequency, then we will have to sample at a speed of at a rate of 8000 samples per second, and each sample will have 8 bits. Okay, so maybe I'll just write here the calculations for you. So I have voice 4000 hertz. So I have to use 8000 samples per second. Okay, this is the sampling rate, and each sample is going to have 8 bits. That means total how many bits it will be? 64,000 bits per second. That means for every 1 second we are going to have 64,000 bits, or we can also say 64 kilobits per second. Okay, so that is the data we are getting for every 1 second. Similarly, for example, if I consider the same thing for 100 seconds, what happens? 6400 kilobits per second per hour. Like that, if you consider the amount of data which we are generating is very huge. For example, if I consider a music which I want to sample, I'll have to go with 44,100 samples per second. Okay, for a music I'll have to go with 44,100 samples per second. 44,100 samples per second. Again, this is very big number compared to your voice, which is 64 kbps, right? Then like again, this music we are not directly sending, but each sample is represented with 16 bits. So when I consider this 16 bits, again like the resulting digital signal will be having a data rate of 705.6 kbps. Okay, that is for monaural, and if you are using stereo, we are going to have 1.411 mbps. Okay, so for every second, if I have 1.41 mbps just for audio, you can imagine how big the number will be when we consider a video signal. Okay, so this basically stresses the requirement of compression. Okay, similarly when I consider digitizing video also, how we get to a feel of what we say video is, you're going to have frames, basically images that we will be considering as frames, and if we run these frames at some rate, for our eye it looks like something is moving. Okay, we get an impression of motion if these frames are displayed at a faster rate. Like basically people consider 25 frames per second. Okay, especially in North America, etc. We do not have anyway a particular standard for this one. Basically your TV, it tries to display 50 frames per second. Okay, uh, by removing an effect called as flickering, it tries to display 50 frames per second. So our intention is, uh, for example, just if I consider I have something like 1024 by 768 pixels. Okay, let me erase. So basically, if I consider a normal resolution 1024 by 768, that is the resolution I have for my picture. Okay, like this we will be sending 2 into 25, that is 50 frames per second, right? 50 frames per second we will be using, and if I consider this is color signal, each pixel will be represented with 24 bits. Okay, if it is grayscale information, I can just go with 8 bits per second, but if it is color signal, I need to go with 24 bits per pixel. So this will result me in 944 Mbps. Okay, so if I consider an image, if I consider the resolution is like this, and if I am considering 25 frames per second, and to avoid flickering we are going with 50 frames per second, and if I represent each pixel with 24 bits, okay, then you are going to have 944 Mbps for every 1 second. So this is also again very big. You just consider for 10 seconds it will be in gigabit. The bandwidth requirement will be in gigabit. So this stresses the need of going with compression with audio, in the case of audio or video. Okay, so like the topics which we will be considering here is like digitizing audio and digitizing video. Okay, so you see here, like whatever I have considered, if I consider analog, you are going to have 64 kbps. Okay, if I consider music, you are going to go with 44,100 samples. Okay, for monaural it will be this much, and for stereo, basically you need to multiply with 2. Then again, if I consider a video, okay, of this resolution, we are getting somewhere in 944 Mbps. That's the problem we have with audio. So compression is needed to send audio or video over the internet. Okay. So how are we going to compress? So we will see some of the details like audio compression, video compression. When I consider audio compression, like I have predictive encoding. Like in predictive encoding, what we will be doing is the differences between the samples are encoded instead of encoding all sample values. For example, if I have an audio signal like this, okay, basically we are representing in digital form, right? Okay, so I am considering like I have something like this. Okay, so maybe I can consider here the value is 5, here the value is 4, here the value is 3, 4, 6. In this case, what we will be doing is first, like if this is the first sample, I will be sending first sample as it is. But for the next one, I will send -1, then -1, then +1, then plus 2. Okay. So the differences between the samples are encoded instead of sending like 5, 4, 3, 4, 6, something like this. This is basically used for speech. We have several standards like if I go with GSM, it has 13 kbps, like it generates 13 kbps. You try to remember we had a data rate of 64 kbps. From that point, we are trying to reduce to 13 kbps. Okay, so I can consider like it is almost like 1 by 5 times. Okay, if it was 65 kbps, 65 by 5, it's 13, right? So almost 1 by 5 times we are trying to compress this particular thing. Again, if I go with G.729, it comes at 8 kbps, and G.723.3, it comes at 6.4 or 5.3 kbps. They are different standards. Anyway, that is not our intention, like how these compressions are done. We are just trying to show like if I go with predictive encoding, these are the rates which we will be getting. Then we have something called as perpetual encoding. Perpetual is related to perception of a particular person. It's something like it basically uses the science of psychoacoustics. Like it tries to consider maybe, for example, if I have a loud noise coming, okay, you are on the traffic, someone is beating drum with very big stick, okay, lot of noise you will be getting, okay. Beside that one, a small child is trying to murmur, okay, and if I record that particular sound, I won't be able to hear the small child murmuring. Okay, I'll be able to hear only the drum beat. So what this science of psychoacoustic takes care is, basically I don't have to sample that small child murmuring there. I can just go with the big drum sound. So like it tries to consider which particular signal will have some kind of effect for human ear. Only those things you are going to consider. And again, for example, I am generating a loud noise. Okay, this loud noise is going to be there in your ear for small duration. Okay, till that particular sound goes out of your ear, you won't be able to listen anything else. So that particular time gap we are going to consider, and if I have any other signals in that particular time gap also, we are not going to consider those things, because anyway your ear cannot recognize those things. So these are considered to be temporal scaling, spatial scaling, okay, like that we are going to consider. Like basically we try to mask is something like we cover something, right? So we might be doing that one in the form of frequency masking or temporal masking. Like with respect to frequency, when I have two different frequencies, one frequency signal will be masked with another frequency, okay, and the temporal masking, like I said, after some time a big sound you heard, you won't be able to hear smaller sound. So with temporal masking we will be doing there. So frequency masking is like loud sound in a frequency range can partially or totally mask a softer sound in another frequency range. Like as I said, someone is beating the drum, and you have a small child who is murmuring, you won't be able to hear that small child sound. Okay, so that drum beat will be in some frequency range, murmuring will be there in another frequency range. So drum beat will mask the murmuring here. And then temporal masking, a loud sound can numb our ears for a short time, even after the sound has stopped. So after generating that loud sound, you are going to, like your ear will not be recognizing any other sounds. So that particular sound we will be removing. That is considered to be temporal masking. So totally, if we consider audio compression, we consider predictive encoding and also perpetual encoding. So in the predictive encoding, we said like we are going to consider the differences of the samples, and when we consider perpetual encoding, we said like we are going to consider the psychoacoustic concepts, and we are trying to deal with this particular thing. Okay, so that is how we will be doing audio compression. Then, when it comes to video, as we said, it's like you are going to have different frames, and these frames you are trying to run at a faster rate so that it will appear to us as if we are looking at some moving thing. Okay, so this particular image, basically we will be dividing into smaller parts. Okay, like basically we told, for an example, if I consider 1024 by 768, okay, the resolution. Resolution means, what does it say? 1024 in one direction, like horizontal you are going to have 1024 pixels, and vertically you are going to have 768 pixels. Okay, so pixel is the smallest object of an image. Okay, I cannot have a smaller than this one. Okay, so if I consider an image, this is the smallest division which is possible, that we are calling as pixel. Okay, so these pixels, like horizontally I have 1024, vertically I have 768 pixels, and these things, like, because we do not want to have more and more calculations, so we are dividing them into smaller and smaller subparts. So when I consider the smaller and smaller subparts, as you can see here, like we are dividing these things into 8 by 8 subblocks. So I'll consider 8 pixels by 8 pixels, 8 pixels by 8 pixels. Like that entire image we are trying to divide here. Okay. So basically this is basically under JPEG compression. Okay, JPEG stands for Joint Photographic Experts Group. Joint Photographic Experts Group. Basically, this is used for image compression, but the reason why we are discussing is this image compression. If you understand, the same thing we can also apply for MPEG. Okay, MPEG. MPEG stands for Motion Picture Experts Group. So if I can compress my images, I can also apply the concept for video, because basically we told like video is something like 24 frames per second, or I can say like 24 images per second, right? So that's the reason first we are discussing about this image compression. So in this one, what we are doing, we are trying to take a block image. So entire resolution we are trying to divide into smaller. Fine.
Only third year and second year exams, huh?
Yes.
Okay.
So as you can see here, entire image we are trying to divide into smaller blocks, like we have shown in the previous one, 8 by 8 sub-blocks we have, and these 8 by 8 sub-blocks, like these things are fed to a particular sequence of operations. Like here you can see DCT, which stands for discrete cosine transform. Then we are giving that to quantizer. Then we are giving for data compression. So we will see step by step each of these operations. Like this blocked image is given to this one. So this 8 by 8 block individually, like 1 by 1 8 by 8 block will be given to DCT. And this takes this 8 by 8 blocks and tries to transform. Basically we said it as discrete cosine transform, right? This transforms and gives to quantizer. Okay. Again, quantizer, you know, like we will be like with respect to amplitude, with respect to time, if I digitize, we call it as sampling. With respect to amplitude, if I digitize, we call it as quantization, right? So that process we will be doing here. We will again say how we are going to do that. Then we are going to do some kind of compression. Okay, and that also we will see what compression we will be using here, and you are going to get a compressed image. This is the process which we will be using in JPEG. Okay. So this is the formula we will be using. Like this is the formula for discrete cosine transform. As you can see here, 0 to 7. Like each block has 8 by 8 pixel, right? Horizontally 8 pixels, vertically 8 pixels. So we are trying to consider those things, that particular value, okay, and we are trying to give it to a formula, and we will be getting corresponding values. So for example, if I have uniform grayscale image, all pixels will be same. Like as you can see here, the entire picture is same. We do not have any variation. In that case, you are going to have something like this. All values will be constant. In that case, I am going to get only one value. After DCT, instead of having 64 values, I have one value 160, and all the remaining values are zeros. Okay. And if I go with the two sections, like till this part, I had one value, and here I have another value. As you can see here 20s, here 50s. And when I do again for this one also, I can see only small number of non-zero entries. Okay. If I see a gradient scale, like slightly it is changing pixel to pixel when I consider just a minute. Okay. So when I consider this pixel to pixel, slightly this is changing. So when I consider this one, and if I see the DCT, like you can see, the values are changing like this. Okay. So what we understand from these three cases is, when I actually give a particular signal, like when I actually give an image to DCT, okay, we are trying to get most of the non-zero entries concentrated in the lower values, and higher frequency values will be almost zeros, and we can remove all these things. Okay, we don't have to send all these things, right? I can send only the non-zero entries. After that, I can say like we have 36 zeros or 64 zeros. Like that, we will be able to say. So the quantization, like how are we going to do quantization in JPEG? Quantization is basically used to reduce the number of bits required for encoding. Like previously, fraction part used to be left by considering integer part. Like for example, I have like 9.69, 8.72, okay, 5.26, like that we have. One method what they used to do is, they used to consider only 9, 8, 5, and they used to remove the remaining parts. Here the number is divided by a constant and fraction is dropped, and only integer is considered. This reduces required number of bits even more. Like when I go with this one, like the number of bits required to represent these values will be very, very less, because we are removing the fractional part. In most implementation, like quantization table defines how to quantize each value. Like in JPEG, when I say quantization, all the 64 elements are not going to have same quantization. Like we are not dividing all 64 values with same value, but the number varies when we move from one pixel to other pixel. Okay. This is the only phase in the process which is not reversible. Like we are trying to divide, like for example, I have a value 63. Let me divide with 8. Okay, what happens in this case? We will be getting something 7 point something. Okay, so at the receiver side, for this 7, if I multiply with 8, will I get 63? Whatever the process you do, you won't be able to get back 60. So this is the only phase in the JPEG process which is not reversible, and that is the reason we call JPEG as lossy compression technique. Okay, like if we are able to get back entire information at the receiver, then we will call them as lossless compressions. But when we cannot exactly replicate what has been transmitted, then we call those type of compressions as lossy compression standards. And reading, like reading also, after quantization, when we actually consider reading of these things, we are not continuously reading, but we are following a zigzag manner. Okay. The reason why we are going with this zigzag manner is when I consider, see here, like without, if you just see here, 20, 15, 12, 0, 0, 0, 0, 15, 17, 0, 0, 0, 0, 12, 0, 0, 0. If I read like that, in between you are going to get most of the zeros. But if I read in zigzag manner, as you can see, all non-zero entries are coming and later you are going to have zeros. Okay, and we can use the concept of run length encoding, RLE we call it as, which specifies like you are going to display like if I have 36 zeros, you are going to say 36 comma 0. Like we have next values, we have 36 entries which are zeros. Like that you are going to specify here. Okay. So that is about like how we will be doing compression in image. Next we have is MPEG, which stands for Motion Picture Experts Group. Like here, we are considering spatial compression by using JPEG concept, like that which we have considered. Spatial compression is something like when I consider an image, okay, from one position to another position within that particular frame, how can we compress? Temporal compression, like we said, we are going to consider 24 frames per second. So when you consider this particular frame, do we have any relationship with this? Do we have any relationship with this? Like that, we are going to consider one frame and the other frame and the relationship between those things. That is considered to be temporal compression. If I have any relationship, then only that relationship we will be keeping and the remaining data we are going to discard. Okay. So that is what we are going to consider here, and we will discuss about iframes, which we call it as interactive frame. We consider P frames, which we call it as predictive frames. Then we have B frame, which we call it as bidirectional frame. Okay, and these are the things we will be looking in MPEG. So see here, like we said, MPEG basically it is a sequence of like video. Basically, it is sequence of frames, right? So while encoding, we will consider like the first one is iframe, interactive, okay, B, bidirectional, predictive, bidirectional, and interactive. So this is the sequence we are going to use. Okay. So when I consider the first frame, from the first image, whatever the first image I have, okay, from that we will be taking this one. Like I'll be using this first frame, and I'll be using JPEG, and I'll be getting the information in iframe. Okay. Then similarly for next ones also we will use JPEG, but in addition to that, like from the fourth one, I will compare with the first one, okay, and I will try to see what are the relationships I have between 4 and 1. That relationship I am going to consider in predictive frame or P frame. Okay, then after doing this, when I want to get the second frame, I will be taking the reference from this one and this one. So if you remember, for P frame, we had only one relationship. But when I consider B frame, it is bidirectional, like both forward prediction and backward prediction. Okay. So what was the relation I had with iframe, previous iframe? What is the relation I have with next coming P frame? Like that we are going to consider when I consider for a B frame. Similarly, this B frame also we are going to consider from this iframe and also from this P frame. Like that, bidirectional relationship we are going to see and we are going to consider. Okay. So the reason why we are going with this one is, like for example, let me consider. You are watching a video. Okay. Background, all buildings are there. Okay. Here I have a road and a car is moving. Okay, so basically to get that particular feeling of car moving, we need to have 24 frames running for every second. So from this point to this point, when I consider only car will be moving, but the remaining buildings are as it is, right? They are not moving. Okay, so like when I consider the next subsequent frame, like this is the first frame, this is the second frame, only this particular car will be moving little bit ahead. Okay, so only that information if I get in this particular second frame and the remaining things, if I can take the relationship from the previous frame, that is enough. I am trying to reduce lot of information. Okay, I don't have to give again like I'm going to have entire buildings and this car is here. Okay, entire background will be as it is, only car is slightly moving forward. Okay, only that information we are going to fetch. Okay, that is what we are saying. When I say we are going to take the relationship from previous frames, that is what the relationship we are going to consider. Whether the object is moving and remaining positions, whether they are same or what is the relationship we have, that relationship we are going to consider in MPEG frame construction. Okay, so that is about MPEG, like how we are going to like do compression with respect to MPEG. Okay, I hope this particular thing is clear for you. Then we have streaming stored audio video. Like if I have some YouTube audio or video file, how are we going to stream that particular thing? Okay, that is a next case we have. So we have four different approaches over here. Okay, first one we will be using a web server, then second one we will be using a web server with meta file, third one we will use a media server, then fourth one we will use media server and RTSP. Okay, so here we are considering like basically in your browser you will type something. Okay, it is something like you will send a request, get some audio or video file. Like you may be requesting like I want a particular movie, and you are contacting web server for that. Okay, and it gives response. Okay, that response you are going to give it to media player, and that media player will be like it will be playing. So for example, you download something in torrents. Basically most of the people do will be downloading in torrents, and after downloading what you will do, you will go to VLC or Windows Media Player. Okay, and you will be playing that particular thing. What is the problem with this one? Like whether it is this one, or even I can say like I have some file in my drive, video file. I cannot play directly, right? Basically I need to download that one. Your friend is sending some audio file to you or some video file to you. You cannot directly play in browser. Instead what you will do, you will download entire file, then you will be going to a media player and you will be playing that. So what is the problem we have with this one is, your audio or video file may be very big. Unless you download that particular thing, you won't have an idea of what is the information which you are trying to download. Okay, I may be having interest in it, I may not be having any interest in it, but till you download and play, you won't be able to know whether it is of any interest to you or not. Okay, so to work on that one, we are going with the second concept, where we have a web server with a meta file. Okay, so rather than completely downloading the file, what we will do is we will get meta file. Meta file is something like an abstraction or basic information of the file you are going to have. That meta file you are trying to get from web server, and web server will be providing, and that meta file you will give, and media player will be contacting web server, and you will be able to get response for that, and you will be watching in media player. So in this case, I don't have to completely download. Okay, but I can look into the meta file to get information about what is that video and what it has, some information, basic information. Then if you are interested, you can approach web server and get back that particular information. So the HTTP client accesses the web server using GET message. The information about the meta file comes in response. The meta file is passed to the media player. The media player uses URL in the meta file to access audio or video file, and the web server responds. And one more reason why you don't want like why do you have to go with media player trying to get this information is I don't have to completely download, like the browser need not download entire file before like trying to know what are the contents of that particular file. But I think it has some problem with this one. Okay, like basically this web just a minute. Whatever the web server you are using, it works on HTTP again, which is based on TCP. So basically, what happens is TCP tries to provide reliable service. Even if a particular file is missing, it tries to retransmit that one. But your media player doesn't require that concept. So what we are doing, we are trying to divide that one. Like web server, we are trying to separate, and media server we are trying to separate. Okay, so by doing this one, we will be like we don't have to use TCP when you are communicating with media server. Okay, so this basically it will be useful to retrieve meta file, but not retrieving the audio file. Basically, like when we are going with HTTP and which is running on TCP, that will be better if we are just getting a meta file. But if you are trying to get audio or video file for that one also, then it may not be that much suitable for us. So we are going with the other thing, which is media server. So in this case, what happens is, first this browser is requesting web server meta file that is being given. Then you are giving meta file to media player. Media player is contacting media server, and again media server is replying back to you. Okay, and here you won't be using any TCP in this particular case. Okay, that is the advantage you are going to have in this case. And for example, sometimes you may be interested in having bidirectional communication, like you may want to give some feedback to the media server, like forward the particular video, backward, fast forward, okay, or play at a speed faster rate. Okay, those things are not possible here. To handle that one, basically we are going with media server with RSTP, real-time streaming protocol. Okay, so here, like you will be getting a meta file by using web server and browser communication. That meta file is given to media player, and media player it communicates with media server. Like first you will set up the communication, then you will get response, then you will say play, and the response will be coming. Like basically audio or video will be streaming. Here you can give commands like forward, backward, play with the speed. Okay, all those kind of things you can say, and at the end when everything is completed, you can tear down that particular thing. Okay, that's what happens when you are going with media server with RSTP, real-time streaming protocol. Okay, so this is different. Like unlike TCP and UDP, we are going to have some benefit by using RSTP, like bidirectional like what we say, communication is possible with this one. Okay, so the same sequence of operations are given here. Then streaming live audio video. Like streaming live audio video is we can also consider this one similar to broadcasting of audio video. Like maybe you can say a TV signal is being broadcasted, or radio signal is being broadcasted. Okay, so earlier we used to have we used to have TV stations, radio stations, which basically broadcast these signals. But now these TV or radio signals are being broadcasted over internet also. Okay, and we consider these things live, like live audio or video, the problem is they are very sensitive to delay. Like they cannot accept retransmission. So, for example, uh, if I just consider you are trying to watch cricket match now, okay, this is some 30th over or 40th over. 40th over, first ball has been bowled. You had some problem with your internet, okay, and you could not watch second ball, third ball, and fourth ball. Okay, it won't happen again when you are watching on TV. It won't happen those three balls will be repeated, right? Whatever the next thing is there, that will be repeated. Like fifth ball will be coming. Unlike the text message, SMS, even if you have poor connection now, after some time it will be coming back to you. But we do not want that kind of thing to happen when we are dealing with live audio video. Okay, so that is a problem we have, and we need to look into it. And similar is the case with real-time audio video. We cannot simply have retransmissions. So we have some characteristics which we need to discuss when we consider real-time audio video. As you can see here, from server you are starting reception of packet at this time. Okay, it takes some time before it reaches you. I can say it is 1 millisecond delay, something like that. Okay, or 1 second delay. I think they are saying with respect to seconds. So there is 1 second delay. After that, again at 10 seconds, like this duration is 10 seconds. So at 10 seconds you are sending the second packet. So I am receiving it 11 seconds. 20, I am receiving it 21. 30, I am receiving it 31. So when I actually see this one, I do not have any issue, right? I am starting at 0, I am able to get back at 1. I am starting at 10, 11, 21, 31. I do not have any gap here. So continuously I can play. Okay, this time relationship is very important, because we need to know when it has arrived, when how much time that particular packet is there, and when we should play that particular thing. But problems will happen when we have some kind of delays. Okay, so jitter is introduced in real-time data by the delay between packets, and we will see what is its jitter. So first packet I got at 1 second. Second packet was sent at 10, but I am getting it 15. Okay, initially I had 1 second delay. Here I have 5 seconds delay. When I got third packet, you can see here it was started at 20, but I am receiving it 7. Okay, similarly it was completed at 30, but I am able to get back at 37. So if I start exactly replaying the streaming at this 1 second, I will be getting till this 11 second. From 11 to 15, I am going to have quiet session, and again till 25, 15, 25 I am going to have this video, and 15 to 27 I am going to have complete quiet session. Okay, and again this thing, earlier I had 4 seconds of quiet, then I had 2 seconds of quiet, like that. There will be some gaps in your streaming. Okay, if you are watching a YouTube video, sometimes it happens buffering will be there, right? It keeps on loading in between. So this is because you do not have sufficient bandwidth. When you do not have sufficient bandwidth, this keeps on loading like that. Okay, so that is what happens in this case also, and we need to overcome this one. If the delay is constant, then there is no problem. Like in the case of previous one, if the delay is constant, I can start after 1 second and I will have continuity, or at least after 2 seconds I will start and I will have continuity. But when there is change in delay, that is jitter is there, then you are going to have quiet sessions in between, or buffering will be there in between. So to overcome that, we need to have some kind of buffers. Okay. So I'm trying to play back at 8 till 18 I'll be having, but I'm receiving at 15 itself. So when I start playing second one, already I have maybe 3 bytes or 3 seconds of data. Okay, I'll continue till 28, but at 27 itself I have received third one. So at least I have 1 second data available. So when we have some variation, like when I have received the packet, when I am starting playing back, in that case, maybe I'll be able to overcome this buffering. Okay, that's what happens, right? When you have problem with respect to speed, what you will do, you will pause YouTube video. Okay, you will allow that one to load some data. Okay, after it loads something, you will start playing, so that you will feel as if there is no buffer, right? That's the same thing. Like you will have to consider these kind of things when you are looking at live audio video. Okay, but these things we cannot allow when we consider streaming. So to prevent jitter, we can timestamp the packets, okay, and separate the arrival time from the playback time. Okay, that's what we have shown in the previous case. It is being started at something like arrival is at 1, second one, but we are starting at 8. Arrival is at 11, but we are starting at 18. Okay, like that we are going to separate the time of arrival and the playback time. And we can have some playback buffer. So as you can see here, like till 8 seconds, we have 7 seconds of data available. When I get the next one, at least 3 seconds of data is there. When I get the third one, at least 1 second data is available. But if I have same time, okay, then this buffer will be empty and buffering will be happening. So a playback buffer is required for real-time traffic to have smooth playback of audio video file. And to have proper ordering, we need sequence number. Like what is the packet number, okay, when it is coming, when you are receiving, and where I should place that one. And multicasting, like real-time traffic needs the support of multicasting also, because there will be one source and multiple persons may be receiving the data. And the translation means changing the encoding of a payload to a lower quality to match the bandwidth of the receiver network. Like we also need to have this one. Like if you see YouTube, we are going to have quality also, right? Like it says something like 360 pixel, okay, 240 pixel, 1040 pixel, something like that. Okay, so the quality downgrading should also be possible, because receiver may not have maximum bandwidth. Okay, to meet these requirements, you need to have lower pixels also, like 720 pixels, etc. Mixing means combining several streams of traffic into one stream. Like for example, if I consider the teams itself, 60 students are there. If I consider, there may be 2 or 3 persons may be communicating at a time. All those things I should be able to hear. Okay, then there should be some mixer which tries to combine the information coming from all the directions and feeds to all the people. Okay. And TCP, like it has all sophistication, like it has many features available. It is not suitable for interactive multimedia applications, because we do not want retransmission of packets. That's what I have been saying. Like if I send something, it should be delivered at the same time. It's not like first I will ask, who are you? Okay, you will say Ramu or Raju something. Okay, then how old are you? I'll say this packet was lost, whatever the name you have said. Okay, when I say how old are you, you should not replay back with Ramu. Okay, that should not happen, right? So like these kind of retransmissions are not required when we consider real-time traffic. So TCP is not suitable for this one. then UDP is more suitable than TCP for interactive traffic. However, we need services of RTP. Okay, another transport layer protocol to make up for whatever the problems we have in UDP. Like UDP, we do have some problems like error control is not there. Okay, those kind of things are not there in UDP, and these problems have to be eliminated. So we are trying to take the advantages from TCP and the advantages of from UDP and trying to mix and provide the services for RTP. That is what we are going to do. And in the next class, we will see more details about this RTP.